Hello, book lovers, and welcome to Book Talk Radio Club. My name is Claire Perkins, and today I'm talking to John Delery, author of Cinderella, Perceptions of a Teenage Famepire. When Cinderella, a restless and ambitious senior at the Kimmy High School for Celebrity Journalism and other nonsense Americans consider news, becomes stranded in the Big Apple teeny after losing her lifeline, her smartphone, she must stop texting, start speaking, and learn to trust her astute inner voice to return home for her fantasy field trip. So, hi, John. First of all, welcome and thank you for coming on Book Talk Radio Club.
Well, I am thrilled to be here with you, Claire.
Oh,
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, sure, my pleasure. So,
Appreciate the
John,
interest.
John, what is a teenage vampire?
Well, to put that term into context, a little background about the book, if you would.
Mm-hmm.
Cinderella has elements of a fairy tale, references to Greek mythology, allusions to Game of Thrones, but mostly my book is a satire,
Okay.
a send-up of the young adult genre. So instead of pitting Cinderella against zombies and vampires, she battles the unfed, the skinny chicks clique at school, and yearns to join the inexhaustible flock of famepires, which I define as those nocturnal creatures of habit who loathe sunlight because it burns and wrinkles their precious skin, but worship the spotlight. No matter what they do, no matter how shamefully they behave, famepires cannot die of embarrassment. The only thing that can kill them is lack of attention, making famepires immortal in a country, America, with an insatiable celebrity fixation.
That sounds brilliant. I love it. I have to ask, how can an older man write about and get into the head of a teenage girl, though?
Well, I must admit, the transformation shocked me too.
I bet.
This is the most fun I've had writing since I was 10 years old. Easily the most fun I've had writing since I was 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been taking language lessons for more than 20 years from my nieces and their female cousins.
Right.
I still have a reserved seat at the now older kids' table every Thanksgiving because I don't act my age or look my age, and I'm truly interested in the evolution of these young adult lives.
Okay.
Thanks to them, I like to think I speak teens lingo fluently. I wanted to tell this story from a female perspective, mostly to underscore the gender gap, the double standards, the inequality that continue to plague females in America, particularly girls under pressure to conform to the absurd beauty norms here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So tell me about Cinderella and why the name?
Well, the name serendipitously appeared one day when I was speaking to my two oldest nieces' youngest cousin. Her name is Brooke. We were at a party and discussing a family vacation to the Jersey Shore. The highlight apparently being a pair of sandals she had seen at a gift shop on the boardwalk. The parents do well, but don't always indulge their only child. The sandals cost $120, according to the price tag, which Brooke's mom deemed too expensive for seasonal footwear for her daughter, only 14 at the time. And so she might outgrow, those shoes in a week, if not sooner. But through the miracle of an end of summer sale, the sandals cost only $30, a price Brooke could afford on her own, without a loan from her mom or dad. And for some reason I said, nice, discount sandals. From now on, I'm going to call you Sanderella. And I don't know, some light bulb went off in my head, and I said, well, I have the title of a book, I thought. But then again, what's the story?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer to that question took form a week later when my oldest niece, Susan, texted help one night. The message startled me, but I didn't think she was in danger, especially that she had the most cordial abductor ever. You know, JSKY, just so you know, if you want to send an SOS to your uncle, BMG, you know, be my guest. So, you know, I wasn't worried. Because I thought, okay, as I said, she must have the nicest kidnapper ever. So, I mean, actually, she just merely fallen asleep. And Mr. Bus Stop, she was staying at my house in New Jersey over the summer and working in New York City at her first job out of college. So while driving 2 miles to get her, I thought, you know, maybe I could write a novel about kids' preferences for texting over talking.
Yeah.
Or as Cinderella tells her evil stepmister early in the book, come on, nobody calls anyone anymore, you know, as if that's an improvement. But that's, you know, that's the norm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here, and I'm sure everywhere.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, totally. Totally.
I mean, as for the character herself, Cinderella is, the name is apt because she's so poor, she has only one pair of shoes. Undersized, off-brand flip-flops. She earns to flee her hometown, Picayune, Pennsylvania, and her nemesis, the churlish, privileged Gorgon triplets. I mean, a nerd who loves playing with words. Cinderella lives with her very odd mother, an evil stepmister, in what she calls a ram spackle house. Plastered disaster held together with goo.
I love it.
Also bravely and amusingly faces the apprehension that girls with the same healthy but persecuted physique feel when they stare at a mirror and fear they need shapewear to squeeze into their clothes, and worse, to fit the preposterous body image the media project onto young females, again, here and everywhere, which is stick figures. Otherwise, IMAX 3D world.
So Sansa Rhythm loses her smartphone in a big city, OMG. How on earth does she manage?
Well, that's where the fairy tale element starts. Her best friend, Scrawny Johnny Hamilton, sort of based on my childhood. Like Scrawny Johnny Hamilton, I was the only asthmatic tuba player in my home. Not for long. But Scrawny Johnny buys Cinderella an expensive app that teleports her to the Big Apple Teeny, which is, my take on New York City.
Sure.
In the Big Apple Teeny, it's where Cinderella can impersonate. I mean, with the app, Cinderella can impersonate a celebrity for the night. So, like Cinderella misses her midnight curfew and reverts to her normal self. Worse, she's stranded in the Big Albertini after what I call the Bluetooth fairy confiscates her special smartphone, triggering the premise of the book. A young woman who had been content to text suddenly has to find her voice, figuratively, literally, to overcome her predicament.
Very clever, John. I love it.
Well, thank you. I put a lot of thought into this.
I can hear.
And writing and rewriting and not to say I'm no different than any author who puts a lot of thought into it, but to have as I said, my age, which isn't exactly ancient, but to have to rewind to childhood and think the way that a modern child thinks or a modern teenager thinks. It's a little difficult, but also, as I said, that's where the real amusement, the real fun came from.
Sure, I bet it did. So tell me, you used to be a journalist writing feature stories, and for the part of the audience too young to remember a time before digital news, before the internet, before cell phones, in fact, the Stone Age, please would you
Yes.
explain the role? Would you explain the role of a features writer?
Well, in brief, a features writer typically tells softer stories rather than the staple of newspapers. Hard
Okay.
news.
Right.
Longer stories, in-depth stories, usually about interesting people instead of issues. I started off as a sports writer, which I thought was, when I was a kid, since I was, as my name implies, Scrawny Johnny, I was never going to be an athlete, but I thought I could, it would be fun to hang around locker rooms and cover games, and I was wrong. I mean, it wasn't. It became a chore.
Right.
And what I learned from that experience was that I enjoyed, talking to people and learning about the athletes. I couldn't care what they did on the field.
Yeah, you're just interested in the person. Yeah.
Then that became interesting to me.
Sure.
And about 8 years of, I don't know. I guess I did it for about 6 years. Sports writing for about 6 years full time. When the features writing job at my newspaper came open, I went there and I just told the managing editor and the 2 executive editors, look, it's the job I've yearned for since I joined this paper. Let me have it. And they did.
So what type of stories did you write then?
Well, the types of stories I wrote were, it was, I wrote all types of stories, which is why it was my dream job. I would interview celebrities one day. I would interview, the now late writer, Tom Wolfe one day. I interviewed Spike Lee, the great American director, one day.
Mm-hmm.
But, I guess most of my job was to interview, what essentially are civilians.
Right.
Certainly the people in my area who had stories to tell, but, weren't famous and were never going to become famous.
Mm-hmm.
Right out of the chute, actually, I became a features writer in September of that year, of the year I switched jobs. And my first really big assignment, a photographer and I flew to Saudi Arabia to cover Operation Desert Shield, which was the prelude to the first Gulf War America was in.
Right.
I have interviewed 25 survivors of Pearl Harbor for a week-long series about the 50th anniversary of that surprise attack.
Fascinating.
That was, it was amazing. Civilians and civilian workers, people who were, teenagers at the time, men who thought they were getting into the, they thought they had enlisted in paradise.
Right.
This was during the Depression.
Sure.
So there weren't many jobs in America.
Mm-hmm.
So, the Navy came along and said, we'll pay you to live in Hawaii. And they thought, okay, this can't get any better.
Sure.
And for, a year or two, they were right. Until, of course, December 7th, 1941.
Sure.
They woke up in hell, not paradise.
Absolutely. Can we go on to the... Sorry, John.
Women struggling to survive with HIV and AIDS without losing hope. I interviewed, I think, the first woman ever to contract HIV in Massachusetts, and also the first heterosexual woman to contract HIV in New Jersey. They didn't fit the profile.
Right.
And so they were as surprised as anyone what was in store for them, but luckily they came along at a time when and this is 20 years ago now, when there were, medicines available.
Right. John, can we go on to the illustrations for the free chapter on your website? They're very interesting. Did you do them or did someone else do them?
I didn't do any of them. As I said, I'm a stick figure kind of guy. But that's the ones that you see in the in the sample chapter. That's the artwork of two of my three imaginative illustrators, Larissa Kloss and Christine Patriarca. They didn't have. They didn't have the input into the drawings. They worked to my specifications, basically.
Talking of your website, as I was having a look through prior to your interview, I noticed one of the links led to a Texticon. Would you like to explain to everyone what the Texticon is, please?
Well, it's my play. I love wordplay, so it's my wordplay on lexicon. But instead of a standard dictionary, it's a decoding machine of sorts for deciphering the secret shorthand. The LOLs, the OMGs, the kids use when texting their peers.
Sure. You have quite a team behind you, so you've got a designer, an illustrator, and a cartoonist. Did they have any input into the story at all then?
Well, I actually had written a lot of the story before I even tried to find illustrators. So, no, as they didn't have direct input into the story, but they did have massive influence on the layout of Sandorella.
Right.
The lookbook. My designer, Melissa Vitale, and the artists, Larissa, Christine, and Caitlin Texel. Melissa enhanced Larissa's mesmerizing drawing to create the cover. And she had the idea to enlarge the type on the artwork, bold keywords, heightening the reader's experience. That's key to me. I try to, as much as I can, engage my readers. So I bold certain ideas to make them, pop out.
Sure.
The pictures throughout. I have Caitlin, the third artist I hired, did the first half of the book ends with Sandorella preparing for her journey to the Big Appletini. And as much as I can, I go from black and white, sort of like the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
To a full color centerpiece illustration that my artist Caitlin did. That sort of transports you and transforms you from this black and white, insignificant town, Picayune, PA, to this, the colorful Big Appletini.
Clever. Very clever.
So, and from then on, whatever illustrations I have, thankfully, through the imagination and the skills of my three artists, they perfectly illustrate Sandorella's moves, the problems, her solutions.
So your book is young adult fiction or satire on that, and it's all about this self-absorbed, text-crazed teen. Yet you, the author, are not on Twitter, Instagram, or Snapchat, all the social media platforms where your readers hang out. Why is that?
Well, I don't have a prominent presence online, but I'm not invisible. I'm on Facebook, where I share my views. I have a Twitter handle, but a fun alias because I love subversively commenting on celebrity clatter that dominates the internet. I would be more on Twitter, but I see, friends of mine who are on it. It seems to, like them, I would feel obligated to feed followers every day.
Right.
And since I quit writing for newspapers a while back and decided to try to immerse myself into writing books, if I were to, feel obligated to feed followers every day, that would reduce the time. I feel it would reduce the time I could spend, accomplishing my larger goals.
So will we be hearing more from Sansa, or is this a one-off?
Actually, I hope this is the foundation of the Sanderella Empire. A guy can dream, right?
Absolutely.
I 3 books, merch, movies. Why not?
Absolutely.
I've had friends tell me that that it's they enjoy it. I hope to. I wake up every day. I'm not. I used to play golf a lot, and I don't so much anymore. But the big philosophy of golf was always to visualize your shot.
Yes, yeah.
Visualize your success.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm doing now. I'm trying at least.
So
I'm working on the sequel.
Right.
Set 7 years in the future when Sanderella is an executive production assistant, working for the most the ultimate boss, Jesus Christ, comes back to Earth, changes his name to J. Christie, and of course, as most people in America do, has his own talk show.
Okay, John, so where can Book Talk Radio Club listeners purchase Sansa?
Well, it's a digital download at Sandalrella, SANDALRELLA.com. I invite visitors to read a sample chapter, learn more about the illustrators, check out the Texticon, and if you feel up to it, and if I've intrigued you enough, you can go right ahead and buy the book.
Fabulous. All right, well, thank you, John. Please come back on Book Talk Radio Club when you've published your next book. I'd love to chat with you more and obviously hear more. In the meantime, good luck for the future, and thank you, everyone, for listening to Book Talk Radio Club. Thank you, John.
Oh, thank you, Claire.
Sure.